Hi, and welcome back to Beans and Bezels. Weiss is an American microbrand that is in a short list of brands that are actually designing and manufacturing a lot of their parts in-house here in America. Some of their watches even boast of entirely in-house movements made by the founder Cameron Weiss. Cameron started Weiss with the goal of putting America back on the global map for watchmaking. He has a formal education in watchmaking and watch repair. Today I'll be looking at a 42mm standard issue field watch from mid-2017, but has been kept in excellent condition and is indistinguishable from a brand new watch. I have another watch with a similar design, the Hanhart Preventer 9, so I will draw some parallels wherever relevant. While the Hanhart looks and feels like a field watch, it is in fact a pilot's watch, so a few design elements may differ. Let's check it out. The case is 42mm in diameter, 49.6mm from lug to lug, and 12.8mm tall. The case is mostly brushed but has some polished accents that are well executed. From what I've read online, Cameron is an expert with a CNC machine, and these cases are manufactured in-house. The case feels robust and the finishing is good with mostly even brushing. There is a polished bezel that seats the large double-dome sapphire crystal that has multiple layers of AR coating on the inner surface. It is a 42mm case with a very narrow bezel, so this crystal is quite large and has excellent legibility with little to no distortion at the edges. I love the lug design. The angular lugs have radially brushed top surfaces and horizontally brushed sides. The lugs slope down a bit towards the wrist and are not drilled through. There is a signed crown at the 3 o'clock position that has deep ridges, making it very easy to grip and operate. Since this is a manual wind watch, it is important to have an excellent crown operating experience, and this watch does deliver. There isn't any crown or stem wobble. Flipping it over, you have a large exhibition window on a case back that is screwed into the case by means of 4 hex screws. A very cool design element here is the fact that the sides of the case back are polished, making the side profile look like a brushed mid-case that is sandwiched between two polished surfaces. The bottom of the case back is brushed and the case back and lugs sit perfectly flush. Brilliant design work here. The watch lacks both a screw-down crown and a screw-down case back, but is rated for up to 100 meters of water resistance. If I had to compare this case design and manufacturing with my Hanhart, I'd say that the Hanhart feels slightly better finished overall, but I'm torn between which case I prefer. The dial is pretty typical for a field watch or any other direct descendant of a pocket watch, but is not boring and has a lot of character. This dial layout has a running seconds hand at the 9 o'clock position, similar to my Hanhart Preventer 9. Instead of a traditional railroad style minute or seconds track, you have a sequence of ticks, large ticks for every minute and 4 small intervals. Each increment of 5 is accented with a triangle that points to its corresponding Arabic numeral. The printing is crisp and easily legible. You then have modestly sized Arabic hour numerals for all the hours except 9. The printing of these, like the rest of the dial, is excellent. Some might prefer the larger Lume numerals on the Hanhart, but these numerals don't feel disproportionate in any way and are easy to read. There is a small second subdial at the 9 o'clock position that has a railroad style seconds track. There are Arabic numerals for every 10-second increment and extended line markers for the other increments of 5. I would have preferred if the small seconds hand extended into the seconds track like on the Hanhart. I find that the Hanhart subdial design is a little more easier to read. I love the choice of hour and minute hands on the Weiss. These sword-style hands have a black border and are generously filled with C3 Superluminova. The black color is not paint and is black oxide treated steel. The finishing on the hands is excellent and I couldn't find any blemishes or finishing irregularities. Even the center cap is finished really well, which to me says a lot about a brand's attention to detail and quality control. As with the seconds hand, I wish the minute and hour hands were a bit longer and were closer to their respective dial markers. But the overall quality of finishing and printing of the dial is really very impressive, and it's great to see this level of finishing being delivered by a local brand. As with a lot of field watches, the Lume design is a bit limited. Only the hour and minute hands are filled with C3 Superluminova. They are generously filled, so brightness and longevity isn't much of an issue. Don't expect the best reading experience late into the night though. I would have liked to see the numerals also loomed. It looks like a lot of folks might have preferred the same because the latest generation of these watches do have Lume numerals and markers. The Hanhart, along with most other small seconds pilot watches, are more generously loomed with loomed hands and reasonably well loomed numerals too. And if you're generally considering other small seconds hand watches, most deck watches will lack lume entirely, like the Strova Marine lineup. You'll observe similar design choices with typical small seconds dress watches too. While Weiss does offer a more in-house USA-made movement experience through the Caliber 1003, this standard issue field watch has a Caliber 1001 instead. This movement is based on a standard ETA Unitas 6497 and I believe is finished, assembled and regulated in-house. Their website isn't clear about this, so it could be in Switzerland too. Either way, I'm not too concerned. This is my first encounter with the 6497 or 6498. I've usually avoided these movements because they're often in watches that are 42 millimeters in diameter or larger, but I've really been trying to get a hold of a Weiss watch for a while now and couldn't pass this one up. These movements have an incredible history and have been around for about 70 years now. This movement beats at 18,000 beats per hour and has a 46-hour power reserve and does not have a hacking seconds hand or date complication. This movement itself is quite large and measures just under 37 millimeters in diameter. Weiss has done a terrific job on keeping the movement clean and free from dust, fibers, and all that other weird stuff you see chilling inside of a watch that suffers from poor quality control. I logged the accuracy of this watch over a 4-day period and observed roughly -7 seconds per day. For a 3-year-old watch that hasn't been regulated or serviced, I think this is keeping excellent time and is very stable too with impressive variance. I've read that these 6497 movements are very easy to regulate and can be regulated to near 0 seconds per day. I have a 6 1/4 inch wrist and I think the 38mm case option would have been a bit more appropriate for my wrist size, but those have a different dial layout and use an ETA 7001 movement instead. The 50mm lug-to-lug width and 42mm wide case feel a bit larger than your typical 50mm lug-to-lug width watch, and I don't really know why because the lugs do have a decent amount of curvature and don't sit too high from the wrist. I would say that this watch is appropriate for 6.75 inch wrists and larger, but that's also very subjective. The case back is flat and lines up nicely with where the strap attaches to the lugs. I find watches that are designed this way to be very comfortable. This has been a longer than usual review, so I'll wrap it up quickly. I find this watch being recommended to people quite often, and usually the areas of focus are the fact that this watch has a lot of components made in America, and then the fact that Cameron Weiss has worked for Audemars Piguet or Vacheron Constantin. While these two facts are definitely of value, I think that narrative does this watch a disservice. What you really need to know about these watches is that when you consider the build quality and finishing, the $1,200 price tag is quite reasonable. So you're not getting an in-house caliber 1003, but the neatly decorated ETA 6497 is still a thing of beauty. The case design and manufacturing is excellent and able to compete with similarly priced Swiss and German watches. So you're not just getting a watch with strong ties to America, you're getting just a very well built watch, period. So if you like what it looks like and if your wrist can pull off the 42mm case, go buy it. You're unlikely to regret it. Once again, thanks for watching and don't forget to read the full length review in the link below.